Welcome back to another video. In today's video, I'm going to be reacting to all of the week 1 news, injuries, breakout performances, and players who put up duds. Getting started with game number 1 here between the San Francisco 49ers and the Detroit Lions. The Niners got to a quick 31-10 lead at halftime, so this game was pretty put away. And I think they were up 41-10 at some point as well. But the Niners end up crushing the Lions. It looks a lot closer on the scoreboard, so the Niners definitely don't like how that finished. Passing-wise for both teams, you've got Jimmy Garoppolo finishing 17 for 25, throwing for 314 yards and a touchdown. A pretty good game for him, but I was expecting a little bit more against the Lions secondary that's probably the worst in the league. Trey Lance did come in and throw a touchdown as well, so that was really exciting. You've got Jared Goff of the Lions, who is a very capable quarterback in the NFL. He's a veteran at this point. He's just not of that elite tier, so he throws for 338 yards on 57 attempts for 3 touchdowns and only 1 pick. That was a pick to Dre Greenlaw that went for 6, though, so the infamous Jared Goff pick 6. But rushing wise, you've got Elijah Mitchell, 6th-round pick for the 49ers, who actually ends up carrying most of the load, rushing for over 100 yards. And this is because Raheem Mostert, does what he normally does, and he got injured the second play of the game, which is very unfortunate. Mostert was, a hot pick for DFS and anybody's fantasy lineups. Everyone was high on Mostert. He gets hurt yet again. And Trey Sermon was a story in this as well. He was a surprise inactive pretty much hours before the game with no explanation. He wasn't on the injury report. And another part of this game was actually Brandon Ayuk, who puts up a goose for fantasy and was running behind guys like Trent Sherfield and basically playing the wide receiver 4. And that's not what we expected Brandon Ayuk to play at all. With Brandon Ayuk for fantasy, I'm just going to be waiting to see what happens in those terms. Jamal Williams and DeAndre Swift both deliver in the fantasy department, coming away with, a touchdown on the ground for Jamal Williams on 54 rushing yards. DeAndre Swift did most of his damage through the air, though, where you'll see DeAndre Swift had 11 targets and 8 catches for 65 yards and a touchdown. If he's going to get that type of volume, he's got to be in your lineup every week. Deebo Samuel had a career day with 9 receptions on 12 targets for 189 yards and a touchdown. He looked healthy, and it was a sight to see. And he wasn't just getting the close to the line of scrimmage, little tosses and stuff that you're used to seeing Deebo Samuel do. He was running routes and getting open out there. So that was a sight to see for me. That's what I'm most excited for with the 49ers offense moving forward. Trent Sherfield, 3 targets. Kittle with a pretty average game, 4 for 78. Receiving wise for the Detroit Lions, you've got Hawkinson, who finished with 8 for 97 and a touchdown. I was low on him coming into the week, but clearly I was wrong on that one. Hawkinson gets a great start to the 2021 season with 17 fantasy points on 8 for 97 and a score, like I said. DeAndre Swift, again, 8 catches. Jamal Williams, 8 catches. So Jared Goff is going to throw to the tight end and running backs. He's not looking to throw down the field, especially with the terrible wide receiving options that the Detroit Lions have. So the Niners end up winning this one 41-33 in an entertaining game. And probably the most surprising game of the afternoon, we have the Cardinals squaring up against the Tennessee Titans. At halftime, the Cardinals were up 24-6, and Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins were doing whatever they wanted against that Tennessee defense. And Arizona's defense really did look impressive. I'm not going to lie. They held Derrick Henry to 58 yards on 17 carries. So I think that says it right there. But on top of that, you have Chandler Jones, who comes out with 5 sacks in this game and absolutely bullies and embarrasses Taylor Lewan, the Tennessee left tackle. And he even comes out on Twitter saying, he got embarrassed. It's only going to make him better, yada, yada, yada. But no one expected the Cardinals to be this good, this quick. The NFC West is stacked again, and to be honest with you, 49ers looked like the worst team in that division after week 1. The rest of the division played pretty good opponents. Besides the Rams, they played the Bears, but the Cardinals are off to a great start. Kyler Murray, 4 passing touchdowns, 1 pick. you didn't expect much out of the rushing department from the running backs, and terrible numbers. James Conner, 16 for 53. That those are James Conner numbers right there. 12 for 63 for Chase Edmonds. It's a little bit better. Edmonds also involved in that passing game, but Ryan Tannehill had an absolutely terrible game, and I streamed him in a lot of my fantasy leagues just because I loved the matchup. It looked good on paper. Arizona's corners, starting with Byron Murphy, I didn't think we're going to be able to lock up Julio and AJ Brown like that. But to be fair, they didn't really lock him up. The front seven just got absolutely mauled by the Cardinals in this game. So don't really know why that happened, but yeah. So the Cardinals just dominated the entire game. They end up winning this one 38-13, and pretty much the surprise of the day, in my opinion. Receiving wise, you got D Hop with 6 for 83 and 2 touchdowns. Christian Kirk also added 2 touchdowns there. Rondell Moore, AJ Green, a lot of guys were involved for the Arizona Cardinals. You get AJ Brown finishing with 4 for 49 and a touchdown, and a really disappointing game from Julio with just 3 for 29. Jaguars against the Texans. This one didn't exactly go as I thought either, with the Texans pretty much destroying the Jags in this game. They were up 27-7 at halftime, and the Texans looked to be in control the entire game. Trevor Lawrence definitely did struggle in his debut, throwing 3 picks against a shoddy secondary, in my opinion. I don't think the Texans are going to be a tough matchup moving forward. So yeah, definitely a rough start for Trevor Lawrence. He ends up throwing for 330 yards, but not too good. On the other side, Tyrod Taylor doing what he does. He's a veteran. He's not going to forget how to play. Comes in, throws for almost 300 yards and 2 touchdowns. Mark Ingram, taking back the clock with 26 attempts for 85 yards and a touchdown. Apparently, he is the number 1 option there in Houston, so we're going to have to adjust accordingly. I thought Phillip Lindsay would get a lot more work. He did end up with a touchdown in this game. James Robinson is the huge disappointment for fantasy. Only 5 for 25. Carlos Hyde looked like the lead back, and this was my fear heading into the game. Heading into this season after Travis Etienne went down, I was not in on James Robinson. Carlos Hyde will be involved. DJ Chark leads the Jags with 12 targets, Marvin Jones with 9. Each of them come away with a touchdown in a game where Laviska Shenault also saw 9 targets, 7 for 50. He's going to be, their Deebo Samuel, close to the line of scrimmage type of guy. Brandon Cooks, 5 for 132 on 7 targets with the 52-yard reception in there. The Houston Texans offense looked a lot better than I expected. I would probably guess this is the highest points they'll score the entire season. Chargers going up against the Washington football team. This game was actually pretty boring, really low point total. The Chargers end up winning this one 20-16 though, in a game where Herbert actually struggled quite a bit, and the numbers look a little bit better than I thought. He went 31 for 47, 337, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. You have Austin Eckler, who did end up playing this game with that hamstring injury. Nothing that worried me going forward. He should be ready to go, locked and loaded as your RB1 moving forward. But Eckler does fall into the end zone. That saves his day. 15 for 57. Eckler's involvement in the passing game really surprised me as well. But Gibson also rushes for 20 attempts, only 90 yards and no touchdowns. So that's really disappointing. I thought if he got that type of volume, he'd have a crazy, crazy game. But this is really good if you are an Antonio Gibson owner. J.D. McKissick seems to be out of the passing game, and, if that's the case, then Antonio Gibson should be getting those 25 touches a game with, possibly 7 through the air. Washington passing-wise, you've got Ryan Fitzpatrick, who goes down in this game pretty early with an injury, so he might end up on IR, and Taylor Heineke does step in and plays pretty well, 11 for 15, 122 and a touchdown. Receiving wise in this game, you've got Keenan Allen with his normal 9 for 100, 13 targets. Mike Williams, 12 targets in this game, so that's a good sign if you're a Mike Williams owner. He gets 8 for 82 and a touchdown. I was pretty high on Mike Williams going into the season. He's definitely got some flex appeal. Terry McLaurin with a pretty mediocre game, 4 for 62. He didn't goose you or anything like that, but he did all right. Logan Thomas with a good tight end game for you, 3 for 30 and a touchdown, in a pretty low-scoring, boring fantasy game. All right, next up we have the only game to go into overtime for week 1, which was the Vikings and the Bengals. The Bengals end up stealing this game. At home, winning 27-24. The Vikings win in being favored by 4, but Kirk Cousins throws 49 passes, throws for 350 and 2 touchdowns, no picks. Joe Burrow, coming off his knee surgery, throws for 260 and 2 touchdowns. Pretty good game for Joe Burrow, and it's good to see him back out there. Dalvin Cook only gets 61 yards on 20 carries, and that was the story to me. Is this Bengals front pretty good, or is the Vikings offensive line just that terrible? We'll be able to see as the season progresses, but that's surprising for Dalvin Cook. Joe Mixon, though, 29 carries for 127 yards and a touchdown. This is why I love drafting this guy. The volume is going to be there without a doubt. And when you get into the receiving options for the Vikings, Adam Thielen goes 9 for 92, 2 touchdowns. I think a lot of people did see a big game for Adam Thielen here, especially with Irv Smith out. Adam Thielen should have an even better season. Osborne was not really even aware of who he was before this game, but he gets 9 targets. Justin Jefferson's held to 5 for 71. Jamar Chase opens his debut with 7 targets for 101 receiving yards and a touchdown on a 50-yard touchdown play as well. Anybody who was worried about Jamar Chase clearly didn't watch him in college. This dude is going to be an elite wide receiver before we know it, no matter how silly he sounds talking about there being stripes on the ball or no stripes or whatever. But T. Higgins also gets a touchdown in this one, 4 for 58. And the Bengals offense looks pretty good to start off the season. Okay, so next up we have the Carolina Panthers, who took on the New York Jets, and the Panthers come away with a win in this one, 19-14. It was a really ugly game. Both offenses looked pretty average, but you did have some fantasy points, that's for sure. With Christian McCaffrey's return, you saw that he's the number 1 rusher on the offense as well as the number 1 receiver, ahead of DJ Moore, ahead of Robbie Anderson. He finished with 9 catches, 89 yards, and then he also gets 21 carries for 98 yards. Finishes with 25 fantasy points, and he didn't even score a touchdown. He finished as the RB1 on the week, and again, without a touchdown. He's the only guy that can do that, which is why, he was the number 1 overall pick. Zach Wilson looked pretty good in this game. You could tell, he struggled a little bit, but goes 20 for 37, throws for 258 yards and 2 touchdowns with the 1 pick. Rushing wise for the New York Jets, it looked awful. Tevin Coleman led the way with 9 carries for 24 yards. Michael Carter didn't get much run. And Sam Darnold played okay in his revenge game, if you would say, but nothing too impressive. Corey Davis finished the day with 97 yards and 2 touchdowns and 7 targets. I think they went out and paid Corey Davis. I think if you drafted him this year, you're going to pay dividends because he's going to be heavily targeted and he has the skill set to cash in. Denzel Mims, only 1 target. Braxton Berrios was the second receiver in this. So the Jets really just didn't look too good at all. McCaffrey gets 9 targets, 9 receptions for 89 yards, like I said. DJ Moore, 6 for 80. Not too bad of a game for him. But Robbie Anderson, only 3 targets. And I think with the return of Christian McCaffrey, you're going to see Robbie Anderson return to just being that deep shot guy. And, that worries me if I'm a Robbie Anderson owner. Tight ends didn't get much run, and Chuba Hubbard actually did enter the game with a couple targets. But, Panthers, it's all going to run through McCaffrey. Okay, next game up, we had the Eagles facing the Falcons. Now, this was a one-sided affair that I really didn't see coming. I thought the Falcons would at least be able to move the ball on Philly and put up somewhat of a fight, but Matt Ryan and the Falcons offense looked terrible. He finished the game going 21 of 35, 164 yards, no touchdowns, no picks, but a very unlike Matt Ryan type of game. Mike Davis, very inefficient with 15 carries for 49 yards, and even Cordero Patterson got 7 carries as well, but the Atlanta offense entirely just looked terrible in this game. So I would be pretty concerned if I'm a Calvin Ridley owner or even like Kyle Pitts. They both had pretty average games, but Jalen Hurts does turn out to be, a smash play. He was number 6 in my rankings. He goes 27 of 35 for 264 and 3 touchdowns. And adding, 62 rushing yards on the ground as well. So if you have Jalen Hurts, I would keep using him in these plus matchups. And Miles Sanders runs for 74 yards on 15 carries. Pretty inefficient, but Kenneth Gainwell was the surprise to me. He's very involved. He is the number 2 back, and you don't even see Boston Scott, really. So I think you can lock Kenneth Gainwell as, that RB2 in Philadelphia, and this offense looks pretty good. They'll be heading to San Francisco next week, so that'll be a good test for them. Devontae Smith was also great. He's the clear wide receiver one, 8 targets, 6 for 71 and a touchdown. Jalen Reagor also 6 for 49 and a touchdown. I think his role is going to be, more fluctuating, but Devontae Smith is locked in as that wide receiver one, and I'd have confidence playing him every week moving forward at this point. And you do have Miles Sanders, who still got four receptions, even though Kenny Gainwell is working in the passing game. Calvin Ridley finishes for 5 for 51. Kyle Pitts 4 for 31. Not total duds, but you expect more out of these guys moving forward. Next up, we had the Bills up against the Steelers. This was a home game for the Bills, and they actually end up losing this game 23-16. And that's one thing for sure, it's that the Steelers defense is elite, and they held Josh Allen to 270 yards, and that's 30 completions on 51 attempts. The Bills are never going to be a team that runs the ball with the type of backs they have, but Devin Singletary did prove to be pretty efficient, 11 for 72 in this game, and Josh Allen, he ran for 44 yards as well. But the real surprise here was that Zach Moss wasn't surprise inactive in this game. I think they might be higher on Breida, but we'll see moving forward. If they're a Buffalo running back, I'm not too interested. Ben had a pretty average game, 18 for 32, 188 and 1. Nothing impressive there. Najee Harris, 16 for 45. He was really held to pretty much nothing in this game, and that's due to a good Bills defense and the Steelers' offensive line being pretty suspect. Looking at the Steelers receivers, you've got Juju with 8 targets, 4 for 52. Claypool finished with 3 for 45 on 5 targets. None of these guys really performed. Deontay Johnson came through with a touchdown, but he, again, leads the team in targets with 10, so Deontay Johnson will always be that volume play, and I will continue to play him moving forward. Diggs, 14 targets, 9 for 69. Beasley, 13 targets, 8 for 60. Cole Beasley went undrafted in a lot of drafts, and I would be scooping him up. I wasn't sure if he was going to be the same PPR guy, but apparently he will be. And Emmanuel Sanders was pretty involved as well. Gabriel Davis does come through with a touchdown, but other than Diggs and Beasley, I'd be cooling off on these Bills wideouts. The Seattle Seahawks at the Indianapolis Colts. This was a game I was really looking forward to, but the Colts really did not do anything on offense. They did not look any better with Carson Wentz back there, and they end up losing this game 28-16. The Colts defense is, one of the top 5 in the league, but Russell Wilson and Seattle just made big play after big play. Russell Wilson, extremely efficient, 18 for 23, 254, and 4 touchdowns. Chris Carson runs for 91 yards in this game off 16 carries. He looked great. And Rashad Penny actually did get hurt in this game, so, that's something to watch as well. On top of that, you've got Carson Wentz going 25 for 38, 251 and 2. He didn't have a bad game, just they really couldn't do anything against the Seahawks. Jonathan Taylor was stuffed, 17 carries for 56 yards. He had no running lanes the entire time, and the Seattle defense really did surprise me in this game. Looking at the receiving options, Tyler Lockett had a couple big plays. He finishes with 4 for 100 and 2 touchdowns. Metcalf, 4 for 60 and a touchdown. He really didn't do anything until the fourth quarter. You've got 6 for 60 for Jonathan Taylor to save his fantasy day, so that's nice. Nyheim Hines, 6 for 48 as well. And these receivers you don't really see stepping up. Zach Pascal is a reliable option and will probably be on the waiver show, but that's the only guy I would be looking for. On the Indianapolis Colts side, you know what you're going to get from the Seattle offense from week to week, so I would keep playing those guys, and I'm not too worried about Jonathan Taylor. I think he gets it going moving forward. Cleveland Browns traveled to Arrowhead to take on the Kansas City Chiefs in a thriller, really. The Browns had this game in control for 3 full quarters, but you know how the Chiefs do it. They'll come back in the fourth. The Browns went up 22-10 heading into halftime, and the Chiefs answered with 10 unanswered points in the third quarter to tie it up at 22 and kind of took it from there. Baker goes 21 of 28 for 321 and 1 pick. He looked really good in this game. It's just the surprise inactive of Odell Beckham, I think, really plays a big role in this. And, people are quick to write him off just because he's been injured, but he would make a huge difference in this game. Mahomes, 337, 3 touchdowns, normal game for him. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, it's alarming, 14 for 43. No touchdowns, didn't look, explosive or anything like that. Chubb, 15 for 83, 2 touchdowns. Kareem Hunt gets it done with 6 for 33 and a touchdown and, added receiving work as well. You see David Njoku had 3 for 76, Jarvis 5 for 71, and Anthony Schwartz played quite a bit, going 3 for 69. Tyreek Hill, monster game, 11 for 197 and 1. Kelsey, 6 for 76 and 2. You start Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill every week, and the Chiefs' offense is going to be elite moving forward. Hopefully, the Browns can fix their passing game with OBJ hopefully returning next week. The Broncos traveled on over to MetLife Stadium to take on the New York Giants, and Teddy Bridgewater came away with a W in his debut. Really disappointing if you're a Giants fan to lose 27-13 to a Broncos team that should be beatable in your opener at home. But Teddy Bridgewater goes 28 for 36, 264 and 2. Daniel Jones goes 22 for 37, 267 and 1 touchdown. No picks, but he still did fumble a couple of times, so the turnovers were there. Melvin Gordon had a huge 70-yard run, so he looked explosive. Like I said, it's going to be hard for Javonte Williams to take that job from Melvin Gordon. Melvin Gordon is a good back. It's not, and Javonte Williams is talented, but so is Melvin Gordon, and he's not declining, anytime soon. I think they both have good seasons, but Javonte goes 14 for 45. Daniel Jones leads all rushers, which is never good for the Giants. And Saquon, in his first game back, they took it easy on him, and you didn't see too much explosiveness out of him. In the receiving game, Jerry Jeudy led the way, 6 for 72, and that was before, he fell to a high ankle sprain, and he's going to be out for 6 to 8 weeks, which is terrible because he looked so good and so explosive out there. You've got Noah Fant as well, 6 for 62. He looked good, and he should get an uptick with Jerry Jeudy, Jerry Jeudy's injury. Sterling Shepard looked incredible, leading the way with 7 for 113 and 1 touchdown. Darius Slayton, 3 for 65. And Kenny Galladay, I thought, looked healthy, which is a great sign, going 4 for 64. So hopefully the Giants offense can get it together moving forward. Packers, Saints, this one was a huge surprise to me. Aaron Rodgers played probably his worst game as a pro, going 15 for 28 for 133 and 2 interceptions. The Saints were all over the Packers from the beginning, heading into halftime 17-3, and then ultimately winning this game 38-3. The Packers were just embarrassed, and Jameis goes 14 for 20, 148 and 5 touchdowns, being the first quarterback in NFL history to throw for 5 touchdowns and under 150 yards. Alvin Kamara, 20 for 83. No touchdowns, but still gets it done for you in fantasy just through the air. And, a total of 25 touches is always nice. They use Tony Jones quite a bit, who they cut Latavius Murray for as the clear backup, and he goes 11 for 50. Jameis Winston even ran for 37 yards. So, everything was had on the Green Bay defense except for, Callaway. He had a really bad night. Rushing-wise, Aaron Jones, 5 carries, 9 yards. I'm not concerned. The Saints have one of the best run defenses in the league, and you should have been downgrading your guys moving in, but I didn't expect this type of downgrade. On 7 targets, you get Devontae Adams, 5 for 56. Cobb had 1 reception for 32 yards. MVS with 8 targets. I think that could be, a waiver wire ad for you. And then on the Saints side of things, you didn't see Marquez Callaway, the preseason hero, do anything. You've got 1 for 14. And in this game, you saw the Saints really use whoever was open. They're not there's no clear alpha on this team with Michael Thomas out, so I think it's going to be a different receiving option scoring these touchdowns every week. In this game, we had Bama versus Bama with Tua Tagovailoa of the Dolphins going up against Mac Jones of the Patriots, and the Dolphins come away with a victory in Foxborough, 17-16, in a really low-scoring affair, with Tua finishing with 200 passing yards, a touchdown and a pick. Mac Jones finishing 281 and 1 touchdown. He looked really sharp out there. He's not going to make any mistakes. Damian Harris in this game had 23 carries for 100 yards, looked really strong, but he had a fumble that lost him the game. So, he might be in Belichick's doghouse moving forward. You've got Myles Gaskin, 9 for 49. He did clearly look like the lead back, I must say. And but in the receiving game, he didn't offer too much, as you can see here with 5 targets, 5 receptions for 27 yards. It's not terrible, but it's good to know that they're still looking for him. But they also use Ahmed in the receiving game as well. He also had 2 catches. Waddle looked pretty good in his debut with a touchdown on 4 for 61. He's definitely someone I'd feel comfortable plugging into my flex spot. And on the Patriots side of things, you have Nelson Aguilar, who had 7 targets, finished 5 for 72 and a touchdown. There's a chance that he's out there to pick up as well. This offense looked pretty good, but nothing really down the field. So hopefully, as the season progresses, you'll see these guys get more involved. Okay, last game of Sunday, we had the Bears up against the Rams. The Rams end up winning this one 34-14. They clearly looked like the better team. And my early prediction of Matthew Stafford being the MVP looked pretty strong. Stafford was 20 for 26 with 321 and 3 touchdowns. This offense just set him up so perfectly to deliver some really easy throws down the field. David Montgomery looked really good in this game as well. He had 16 carries, 108 yards, and a touchdown, and that's against, a really stout Rams front seven and the best defense in the NFL, in my opinion. Andy Dalton played, like Andy Dalton, 27-38, 206 yards, and a pick. Justin Fields goes 2 for 2 and 10 yards. They did bring him in the goal line, and he got his first NFL touchdown off of a read option, so that was good to see out of Justin Fields. He'll be starting in no time, in my opinion. I think they do give Andy another shot next week, though, which is unfortunate. Moving on to the receiving for the Bears, it was pretty bad. You had Allen Robinson finishing 6 for 35, getting the Jalen Ramsey treatment on 11 targets. And you had the next best receiver, Marquise Goodwin, for 45 yards. Cooper Kupp had a big day, 10 targets, 7 for 108, and a touchdown. Van Jefferson also had a huge play down the field. You didn't see Deshaun Jackson really get targeted too much. He had 2 targets. And Robert Woods, only 4 targets on the day and that 1 touchdown to somewhat save his fantasy day. But if I'm a Robert Woods owner, I'm a little concerned. I was ahead on Cooper Kupp the entire fantasy season, and this is why. I think that he's really going to be Matthew Stafford's guy, and he's always been the touchdown guy for the Rams in the receiving department anyways. So that wraps up Sunday. Last night, though, we had one of the probably the best game of the whole thing with the Ravens taking on the Raiders. It went to overtime, and the Raiders end up winning an absolute thriller. Derek Carr looked really good in my opinion. He did make one or two mistakes, but he looked really good with what he had. And the Ravens, I've been lower on ever since all of the injuries. Their defense in the secondary is suspect now that Marcus Peters is gone. So we'll see how those two teams fare moving forward. But that is going to do it for today's episode. I appreciate everybody for tuning in. Please don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe.